Hey friend, Juan Pablo here. Today's topic of discussion, the cash flow cycle. Now this cycle alone transformed my real estate investing career, literally speaking. Actually my life. If I didn't discover this cash flow cycle, I would still be a BFC, a broke, frustrated chump. Living paycheck to paycheck, overworked, underpaid, and a chump because I will complain and do little to nothing to change. So hopefully at the end of this video, you won't be a chump and you'll do something to change that situation. Now with the cash flow cycle, it's predicated upon you buying multifamily properties. Why multifamily properties? Because multifamily investing is the fastest way to financial freedom. It allows you to use creative financing, people will want to partner with you, and you can also be more creative in structuring the financing, which I'll outline in today's video. So let's go ahead and get started. The first phase is find the money. The first phase in the cycle. And it is predicated on YOU. You have to find the money, my friend. You find the money, then you find the deal. Now in regard to find the money, I wanted to have a repeatable process so that every so often I can get access to capital to close on more and more deals. Because this is the process you want to implement. You want to be able to find the money so that a deal finder can find a deal that fits your pockets. So let's get started. The first step I want you to do, if you haven't done so already, is to apply for business credit. Because business credit, you can apply for business credit every 3 to 6 months, period. So every 3 to 6 months, you apply for another round of funding, so that way you can use that funding for your next deal. You apply for business credit. Now after applying for business credit, you may not get approved. Let's say you have some blemishes on your personal credit. No problems. We actually offer that at 100percentfinance.com, credit repair. Or you might have inquiries. We can also provide you with a product to get those inquiries removed. But at the end of the day, you need your personal credit looking as pretty as possible. So let's say you apply for business credit and you do get awarded. Congrats. Now you have access to capital that you can use for your next deal. But once you apply for business credit, you will receive hard inquiries. Again, we have a product, hard inquiry removal, in which you can use yourself to get those hard inquiries removed from your credit report. Because you can remove hard inquiries from your personal credit report as long as you didn't receive personal credit. It's business credit, so you can get those hard inquiry removals removed. So now, you apply for business credit, you get the negative items off your credit report, whether it's inquiries or derogatory items, inaccurate information. Then the next step, you apply for a mortgage, an investment mortgage, a commercial mortgage. Why commercial? Because they're less stringent when their underwriting is concerned. They're okay with seller financing. They are okay with you doing partnerships. And they don't care about your bank statement. So you can convert the business credit to cash once we get into the later process of the cycle, the financial due diligence, which I get on later. So you apply for business credit, you remove the inquiries, you apply for a mortgage. That's the first phase. You find the money. Now you know how much money you have access to get started in real estate investing, so that you can have a deal finder find a property that fits your pockets. So after you find the money, business credit, inquiry removal, mortgage, the next step is you want to move forward with finding a deal. So how do you find a deal? Well, one of the things I did to find a deal, I cultivated relationships with over 20 to 25 different listing agents. Listing agents are agents who work with the seller. So you might be thinking, hold on, Juan Pablo, why are you working with the seller's agent? Won't they be representing the seller and not you? No, my friend, they'll be acting as a dual agent. They'll be representing both the seller and myself. Now I prefer to work with listing agents for the following reasons. Number one, they know the state of the property. They'll say, well, Pablo, sure, I'm not a certified property inspector, but I'm looking at the roof, it looks like some water leakage. I think the roof might need repaired. Hey, Juan, I'm definitely not a contractor, okay? But it looks like that unit 2 in the back room, it looks like it's sinking a little bit. It might have some foundational issues. So they can give me some insight on the state of the property, being that I'm an out-of-state investor, before I spend money ordering a property inspection and appraisal and so forth. At least they can be my eyes on the property for the time being. Secondly, they know the motivation of the seller. Hey, listing agent, why is the seller selling? Well, unfortunately, the seller's son has a brain aneurysm, and the seller must sell the property in order to afford his son's medical expenses. It's tough, but this stuff like this happens. So I know this gentleman is highly motivated to sell. He's pretty much in a need to sell position and not I like to sell. Oh, it'd be nice to sell. No, he needs to sell that property. Or the seller might be in a situation in which he's selling a 6 unit to buy a 30 unit. And he needs the proceeds from that sale to buy the next property. Highly motivated to close quickly. Or he may be in a situation where he's facing a divorce, a layoff, or whatever the case may be. This person is highly motivated. Not only like to buy properties from sellers who are motivated sellers, meaning they're motivated to sell. They must sell, not I would like to sell. So I work with listing agents for that reason. And the third reason, they act as a dual agent. So they're getting both sides of the commission. Instead of getting the normal 3%, they're getting 6% of the commission. The whole enchilada. So my listing agent would rather receive 6% commission off a $100,000 purchase price than 3% commission off $150,000. In other words, they'll be willing to talk down the price because they're thinking, hey, I'm getting a bigger piece of the pie, a bigger percentage. And I'm representing Juan. Juan is an investor, AKA, fourth reason, he's a repeat buyer. So being that Juan's a repeat buyer, of course, I would love to send Juan deals all the time at a discount because he's gonna be feeding me this money. So those are the reasons why I work with listing agents. Now I cultivate a team of them, 20. You might be saying, whoa, that's a lot. Yes, because it's people. Real estate investing is a number-based game and a people-based game, meaning numbers. You got to fill through a lot of them because not everyone's going to be as ambitious or as professional as you are. There's several listing agents out there in which they just do real estate investing, or they become an agent part-time. Or they may have a few clients, they may have their 6 go-to clients and say, hey, you seem like a nice person, Alice. You seem like a nice person, Joe. Hey, you seem like a great guy, Rudy, but I already have too many clients in my arsenal right now. I don't have the time, the bandwidth to entertain another client like you. Or they might not be professional. You reach out to them, oh, I forgot to call you back. My bad, this is what happened. My son did this. Oh, I was at the baseball game. They're just unprofessional. They don't have time management skills. They're just not professional. They're self-employed. So it happens with them. So you have to reach out to a lot of them, numbers game, so that you can weed out the ones that aren't going to be a good fit for your team. It's just that simple. And it's a number-based game because not all of them who, granted, they may be great all-star agents, they just might not have the inventory at the moment. They might be in a dry spell. They just didn't get any new listings this quarter. It happens. Sometimes they go through a slump, but you don't want to suffer as a result of this slump. You want to have a team of listing agents finding deals for you. So that's the first step. I reach out to 20 to about 25 listing agents and I weed them out. And I make sure I share with them my 3 M's. The money. Hey, here's my mortgage. You seen that, right, in phase 1? Here's my proof of funds, my business credit, my money in my bank account. Here it goes. Here's the money. That's what I show them to add credibility. Second, the model. Hey, can you find me a property? I want a 5 unit to 20 unit, 10 cap rate, $25,000 per door, and I also want a 15% cash on cash return. And then I tell them about the market. I'm looking for properties in the city of Pittsburgh, low income, low crime, C areas, Section 8 is great, and I'm looking to invest in emerging markets where there's jobs. So I share with them the model and the market. That's the 3 M's. My money, proof of it, the model I want, and the market. And I follow up with them consistently. Again, it's a people-based game. So you have to establish rapport. Just like sales, you always got to establish credibility as well as likability. As long as you do that with these agents, they will continue to feed you deals. Not just listings on the MLS or on LoopNet.com, but also off the market deals. Those are called pocket listings. They'll list it with the seller, reach out to you. Hey, Janice, you want this deal? Well, you got 3 days to let me know. All right, let me know. You do your analysis and you get back to them and hopefully put that deal under contract. So we're still on that phase. We're talking about finding the deal. Cultivate a team of agents, 20 to 25, and you nurture those relationships, establish rapport, call them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So this is the most time-consuming part of the cash flow cycle because you got to go through a lot of deals. It's a numbers-based game. So let's say out of the 20 to 25 agents you reach out to, 8 of them send you a lot of deals. Let's say they send you 10 deals each. So now you got 80 listings. Do you actually have the time to fill through 80 different properties to see the profitability of it? No, I don't have the time for that. So what do? I apply the 1% rule. Now I do have the time for that. The 1% rule is your first screening to see if this multifamily deal is going to be profitable where the cash flow is concerned. The 1% rule is as follows. The monthly rent should be equal to or greater than 1% of the purchase price. In other words, if you came across a 5-unit apartment building for $100,000, yes, those do exist. I have one of my students, shout out to Dwayne if you're watching this, he obtained a 5-unit in Pittsburgh, PA through my help, he's a student, a 5-unit in Pittsburgh, PA for $100,000. Okay, so those do exist. So let's say you came across that 5-unit for $100,000. The monthly rent in that scenario should be $1,000. $1,000 or more. That's 1% of the purchase price, $100,000. Then once you fill those deals and you realize they meet the 1% rule, your next step is to put those in your deal analyzer, which we offer to our students as well. The deal analyzer just analyzes properties for 3 criteria. Does it cash flow? Cash flows as follows. The gross revenue, minus your vacancy rate, minus your operating expenses, that's your taxes, insurance, property management fees, reserves, and so forth. Minus your debt service, that's your business credit card payment, your mortgage payment, seller financing, partners, lenders, and so forth. Whatever debt you use to finance the property, that's debt service. What's left over is called your profit, your cash flow. And you should cash flow at least $100 per unit. So you have a 5-unit, that cash flow should be about $500, more or less. Okay? So that's the first criteria, must cash flow. And this is an order of importance. So the 1% rule, then you put them in a spreadsheet, deal analyzer, must cash flow $100 per door. Second criteria, 15% cash on cash return. Period. Cash on cash return is your yearly cash flow divided by your amount of money invested out of pocket. So if you receive a yearly cash flow of $12,000 and you invested $48,000 out of pocket, in that scenario, your cash on cash return will be 1/4, which is 25%. That's greater than 15%, which is excellent. Third criteria, you must buy with built-in equity. And I would say about 10 to 15% built-in equity, which means if we're buying this 5-unit for $100,000, we need to get it under less than that. If it's worth $100,000, we need to get it less than that. Let's say $80,000 to $85,000. That would be ideal. So those are the 3 criteria. Must cash flow $100 per door. Second criteria, you must have a cash on cash return of 15%. Third criteria, you must buy with built-in equity of 15%. So you get it? I reach out to 25 agents. They start sending me deals. I get a lot of deals. That's called deal flow. I apply the 1% rule. After I apply the 1% rule, then I put in my deal analyzer and analyze those deals for 3 criteria. Cash flow, $100 per door. Cash on cash return, 15% or higher, as well as built-in equity of 15% or more. Then once I do all that, then I start writing a lot of offers. So you see, this is a process. So I want to make sure you are prudent in being a real estate entrepreneur. Now, when I deal find process, not once did I mention you go knocking for doors, driving for dollars, did I? I didn't say go door knocking. I didn't say send out a yellow letter campaign. Sure, those methods work. Don't get me wrong, but that adds even more to the time that's being spent. I'd rather have a team of agents, and that's what they do all day, every day, find me deals, or a team of wholesalers find me deals, than me finding myself. I'd rather be the entrepreneur and hire people who could potentially do a better job than me, execute on those activities, and you should too. Your 2 main responsibilities are as follows. Find the money, find the deal, by having teams and systems in place. So after you submit all these offers, not all of them get accepted, not all of them get entertained, but a few people will bite on it. A few sellers may say, hey, I'm interested, I really am, but I can't do $100,000. I can do 110. Or I don't know about seller financing. I can't do 5%, but I can do 7%. So it's negotiations, and that's the next step in this cycle. After you write a ton of offers from those deals that are actually, in essence, real deals, you want to negotiate the LOI, the letter of intent, which basically means, hey, I intend to buy your property at this purchase price and with these terms. And these are the purchase price and terms you should use. You should, I told you about the purchase price, you want to buy with built-in equity. Now the terms, I normally negotiate seller financing, which for commercial mortgages, they don't allow the sellers to do more than 10%. If so, I would definitely take it, but they don't. So in that case, for seller financing, 5% interest rate amortized over 10 years, meaning the time it takes to pay it off, with a balloon payment in 5 years. That's the terms I use for seller financing. And then I might say, hey, I want a due diligence period of 45 days. I want an earnest money deposit, which is good faith, that I want to buy this property at $2,000 or more. And I'll put how am I going to finance it and the expected closing date. That's all I do for the letter of intent. So there's a bit of back and forth between me and the seller. And that's why I like working with a listing agent, because you have a buyer's agent in that mix as well. That just adds another degree of separation between you and the seller. So I like to just be one degree of separation, just that dual agent that represents both of us. Because there would be a lot of back and forth in regard to the purchase price and the terms. So let's say you guys come to an agreement. Next thing you want to do is have a contract, a purchase and sale agreement. Whew, this is very important. You want to have ironclad contingencies. So allow me to share you a story. I was driving from Syracuse, New York to New York City to do an event October of last year. And on the road, some young lady had my phone number. I had a lot of videos on YouTube when I first got started out, in which I placed my phone number in the description of every video, just for people to reach out, because that was my main motive of creating this whole blog, 100% Finance, but just to get the message out. But this blog ended up turning into a business as a result, because it was a need for people. So as I'm driving, I pick up the phone. She said, hey Juan, I'm in deep trouble, I need your help. I said, okay, what's going on? I got some time, I'm on the road. She said, well, I'm buying a single family house. And unfortunately, there's a lot of repairs that need to be done. The seller, he does not want to do a repair allowance. He wanted to give me a credit at closing for the repair so my team can do it. And secondly, he don't want to do repairs himself either. He wants to sell the property as is. And the real estate agent said if I back out, she gets to keep my earnest money deposit. I said, okay, so when do you get this property under contract? She said this month. I said, oh, you should be fine. You should be able to back out as a result of your due diligence period. Well, the agent said I can back out. Okay, well, what's your due diligence period? She said, 10 days. I said, 10 days? It should be 30 to 45 days. Why did you select such a short time period? And she said, because my agent advised me to. I said, well, of course she did. She's incentivized for you to close quickly so she can get her check quickly. She's getting paid on a commission. But you shouldn't take investment advice from a real estate agent. And I said, well, how much was your earnest money deposit? Was it $1,000? No, it was $5,000. I said, you should negotiate no more than $1,000 earnest money deposit for single family, and for multifamily, no more than $3,000. Why did you select $5,000? Let me guess. Your agent recommended. She said yes. I said, well, obviously, if you back out, she gets to keep $5,000 instead of $1,000. So that was a learning lesson for her, School of Hard Knocks. And I don't want you to go through that lesson as well. That's why it's extremely important for you to have those ironclad contingencies I just mentioned. You want the property to be 100% occupied at closing, so that way you can get that mortgage, right? Because most mortgages will give an 80% LTV loan to value, meaning the property is worth $100,000 to give you $80,000 as a mortgage, only if it's 80% occupied. So out of that 5-unit example, you gotta have 4 units occupied. But in my contract, I say it has to be 100% occupied. And many of my students ask me, well, what about this one, Pablo? What if the seller just throws any old tenant in there and you guys don't close? Well, my friend, my students ask, hey, Juan Pablo, what if the seller just throws any old tenant in there and you guys happen to close? And I said, well, what if we don't close? So the seller is stuck with that any old tenant. Okay, so it's risky for him. And so I have that contingency, 100% occupied at closing. The next contingency I have is that I need all the seller's tax returns, documents, proving the performance of the asset. I need all leases. I need the trailing 12 utility bills, meaning the past 12 months of utility bills. I need to see the operating expenses on the seller's tax returns, his Schedule E's, so I can see what he reported to Uncle Sam. I also need to see rent roll. I need to see copies of the tax bills, P&Ls, profit and loss statements. I need to see all those documents. And I don't send my earnest money deposit in until I receive all those documents. Other contingency, title contingency. What if the seller owes a lot of debts? What if other people put liens and judgments on his property? Like a mechanic's lien, he didn't pay a contractor for a job he performed. In that situation, that there will be liens on the property. And if there's liens on the property, then it's important for the seller to pay it off. And if the seller refuses to pay it off, I can back out. No harm, no foul. And that's a contingency. Just giving you legal right to back out of the contract if something doesn't go as planned. Okay, so that's one contingency I put. Another contingency I put is a financing contingency. So let's say for some odd reason I'm not able to get qualified for a mortgage. No problem. I can back out and get my earnest money deposit back. No harm, no foul. I also get an appraisal contingency outlined in that contract, which basically means, hey, if for some odd reason the appraisal comes back and which is lower than the purchase price, then I get to back out. No harm, no foul. So you want to make sure you have all of these contingencies in place. So if you ever need to back out that contract, you can. And again, I also put a contingency in place in regard to the due diligence, 30 to 45 days. So you want to make sure, my friend, if you're getting started in real estate, you want to make sure you have the right language on those contracts. And I always preference you to CYA, consult your attorney to make sure your contracts are A1 to protect yourself. Don't just accept a contract from a real estate agent or from the seller. Get a review by your attorney. Right? That's called attorney review. So that way your attorney will have your best interests at heart. So the next step in this cycle outside of the getting the property under contract is the due diligence. Now this, my friend, is the most meticulous, time-consuming part. This is where you have to dot every I, cross every T. So assuming the seller provided all the docs, you have to cross-reference all those documents he provided you with. So this is what I do with the income. I check the listing. And I look at all the numbers. I compare the listing against the rent roll, against the leases. Also, I call the tenants to verify they live there and these leases are made up. They're actual leases with tenants in them paying the amount stated on the lease. And then I cross-reference it by checking Section 8 to make sure they pay that same rent. It's a lot of work. Calling all those tenants, looking at all those leases, line by line, paragraph by paragraph. It's a lot of work. Outside of the revenue, I also check the expenses. Let's say the water bill. I'll look on the listing, the water bill may say $2,500. I compare it to sales tax returns. And if there's any discrepancy between what the seller provided and the information I found on the listing, that leaves room for discussion. I'll reach out to the seller and ask, hey, what's going on? Can you please provide a letter of explanation? Because I want to know, hey, is the seller, did he just make a mathematical error? Or is he lying to me or Uncle Sam? I need to know what's going on. If it's inadequate, meaning the explanation that the seller provides is inadequate, then we have to renegotiate or I'm backing out the deal. So it's important to do the financial due diligence within the first 10 days of getting this property under contract. And by the way, the financial due diligence starts after the seller provides you with all the docs. So if the seller doesn't provide you with all the docs, then no problem. You don't start the financial due diligence clock. It doesn't start at that point until you receive all documentation. Now I just talked about the water bill. You want to check the water bill on the listing against the seller's tax returns as well as the water company. So you want to cross-reference those three things. Check what's on the listing against the documents the seller provided and call the third-party company to verify it as well. And you have to do that for the tax bills, water company, gas, utilities, whatever bills you have to pay for the property as well as the income. Again, the most meticulous, tedious part in the cash flow cycle, but it's extremely important because it also helps you with negotiations. Now that's just the financial due diligence. You also have to be focused on the physical due diligence. So after you finish the financial due diligence in 10 days, see, you understand why I recommend a 30 to 45 day due diligence period now, right? It's a lot of work. So once you're done with the financial, you have to verify the asset, the property. So everything from the roof to the basement to the crawl space gets inspected, not by you, but by a certified property inspector. And of course, you should always take a look at the property. So people always ask me, well, how do you get a property under contract, Juan, and you never laid your eyes on it? First thing I want to lay my eyes on are the numbers, right? Because the numbers trump the property. I want to make sure the numbers are working right. I don't want myself or my partners to be spending one single cent on traveling expenses and I can't even get all the leases. It doesn't make any sense. I don't want my money being spent or my partner's money being spent on getting a property inspected and I can't even verify the light bill. And the seller came and provided me with copies of the utility bills. It's asinine. At least if I'm doing the financial due diligence, guess how much money that's costing? $0. So once all the financials are good to go, green light, then I move forward with the physical inspection. I get a certified property inspector, giving me a report. Everything that's a safety issue, a major issue, I ask for a credit at closing. So for instance, in that 5 unit for $100,000, let's say I was supposed to bring $20,000 to the table for a down payment. Now, if I find out there was $5,000 in repairs and the seller signed off on giving me a repair allowance, then that means I have to bring to the closing table $15,000. $20,000 down payment minus the $5,000 repair allowance equates to $15,000 I have to bring to the table. And now, when you're getting a deal on the contract, I also want to make sure you have your attorney create an entity for you as well. So, depending on your area, you need to talk to your real estate attorney to see what is the best entity to hold a real estate property in your market, as well as how you're doing it, because you might want to buy it yourself, you might want to buy it with partners. So always CYA, consult an attorney. So back to the physical due diligence. So once that's done, I negotiate the repair allowance and I get a credit at closing. Now this is another tidbit I want to provide you. I always close on the property within the first week of the month. Why is that important? Because you get prorated the rent. So if you close on the 5th of the month, the first 5 days of the rent gets credited to the seller. The latter 25, 26 days of the month gets credited to you. So that means there's less money you have to bring to the down payment, as well as you receive security deposit credits. So typically a security deposit is equal to the same 1 month rent, right? So if the monthly rent is $5,000 a month and you close on the 1st of the month, you'll get credited $5,000 at closing. So back to that scenario, you had $20,000 you had to bring to the closing table. You minus $5,000 for the repair allowance, $15,000 you have to bring to the table. Now you minus $5,000 for the rent proration since you closed on the 1st. That's another $5,000 less you have to bring to the table. So that's now $10,000 plus another $5,000 for a security deposit. So in that scenario, you're only bringing a down payment amount of $5,000 simply because you structured up the math correctly. That's why you must put that contingency in your contract. It has to be 100% occupied at closing. So after the meticulous, tedious due diligence, here's the fun part. You're almost near home plate. You order the appraisal, you close on the property, keys in hand, the property is yours. And if you're smart, you have a property management company managing it for you, or you have the time available, you can self-manage it yourself, and you can receive that cash flow report. Just letting you know what's the revenue, the expenses, the income, the state of the property, any repairs needed. You just get a report from your asset manager or your project manager. And then last and certainly not least, you repeat the process. So that, my friend, is how I received 25 business credit cards with over $300,000 in limits, with over 30 rental units by 30 years old, because I will repeat this cycle, wash, rinse, and repeat. This whole cycle takes a time frame of about 4 to 6 months. So let's say, conservatively speaking, every 6 months, I will repeat this cycle. And I highly recommend you to do that as well. So if you need business funding, if you need credit repair, if you need to remove those inquiries, and if you need assistance with any step of this process, whether it's, hey, can you help me find a deal, Juan Pablo? Will you guys be able to perform the due diligence? Will you guys be able to review the numbers and analysis and educate me to make sure I don't make any mistakes? We're here to help. I'll close with this. I had one student, and he had the money, looked good on paper, credit and everything, had a nice paying job, had the W-2s to prove it, and he had the knowledge. I've been coaching him week after week on what to do. So I told him, hey, now it's time to build your team. Again, it's time consuming, right? Because he's a full-time worker. He has a wife and kids, so he's a busy guy. But I said, hey, you got to start building your team. Will you be able to do this by next call? He said, sure, Juan Pablo, I got you. Next call, hey, did you do it? No, I didn't do it. What happened? Oh, you know how it is, man. You know, wife and kids, you know. I said, I get it. So how about this? Next call, make sure you get it done, okay? I get it, life got in the way. He said, all right, cool, I got you. Next call, no, I still ain't do it. Hey, come on, man, what's up? Give it to me straight. He said, well, I'm scared. What are you scared of? I'm scared of cold calling an agent who's more experienced than me, and I'm wet behind the ears, and I'm pretty much telling them my 3 M's and so forth. So I said, okay, I got it. You got an inferiority complex. you feel inferior because you're scared to reach out to these people. Or you might not have skill sets developed yet in regards to negotiations with them, or in regards to cold calling, which is sales, right? You might not ever did sales a day in your life, so you have those reservations. And he also mentioned, yeah, I'm just scared of just making a mistake. I get it, you gave me everything, the blueprint, the scripts, the whole 9 yards, but what if it's just one small thing that I forget? And then I make a huge mistake that can cost me thousands of dollars. Similar to like that one young lady who called me on my way from Syracuse to New York. She just made that 2 small mistakes. The earnest money deposit and the 10-day due diligence. So he was also fearful of making a mistake. That was holding him back. It wasn't the money, it wasn't the credit, it wasn't the knowledge. The main thing that was holding him back was fear. And he could make a mistake, say the wrong thing, shoot himself in the foot. It happens. So if you're in that situation and you say, hey, Juan Pablo, I need some help, that's why we created the MAP program, to be able to help our students in that same situation, in which, hey, we'll do the work for you. That phase from finding the deal to writing offers, the letter of intent, getting under contract, performing due diligence, but you close on the property and you own the property 100% outright, we'll help you with that. But in the interim, while we're doing the work, we'll be consulting with you. We'll consult with you every single week, short sprints, just to make sure that we have frequent touches, that nothing slips through the cracks, and let you know we're here for you, as well as to give you updates. There's reasons why we have these calls that are very frequent. Number 1, updates, letting you know what's going on with your deal or with the process. Number 2, education, so that you can shadow us. We'll lead the way, but you'll be behind us with a pen and pad every step of the way, understanding exactly what we're doing. And the third reason, accountability. Because honestly, you might not be that professional like I stated earlier. And I'm not throwing any shade here, but you might need to grow in that area. You might not have those negotiation skill sets developed or time management developed. You might not have those professional skill sets or those soft skills developed yet, but it's important. But I want to make sure my team at 100% Finance wants to make sure there's no dependencies that we can't overcome, because I don't want you to be a dependency upon us, meaning, hey, I need you to sign this contract. What's taking you so long? Or hey, did you reach out to this mortgage lender? Remember, you have to find the money. Why didn't you call them yet? I want to make sure there's no dependencies. So we have frequent touches to make sure accountability is in place. And I would hate for you to call someone on my real estate team, let's say my mortgage broker, for example, and they're being unresponsive to you. But if we have weekly calls and you tell me that, I'm going to be like a pit bull and sick them. I'm going to make sure I reach out to our mortgage lender so that they can serve you the way that you're supposed to be served. Since you're a client, since you're a student of ours. And I act as your advisor, giving you play-by-play, up-to-date information. So we perform the work. We also have those calls scheduled, very frequent, same time, same day of the week. Scheduled calls, Zoom calls, video calls, so we can see each other and you can see my screen. Plus, we have a trip to Pittsburgh, which will be amazing. You'll be able to understand the specifics of investing out of state, see the market itself, meet my team, my real estate agent, my contractor, my mortgage lender. All commercial, by the way, over brunch, informal. But we have classroom training. Hey Juan, you told me before about a contractor, he painted your wall, right? He painted 2 walls and he said he painted a whole house and you sent him a check. How did you overcome that? How did you set up safeguards and safety measures to make sure that mistake doesn't happen again, so a contractor doesn't rip you off because they know they found when that you live out of state? And how do you get a certified property inspector on your team to the point they actually do a good job? How do you have a property manager who doesn't nickel and dime you, who doesn't take advantage, that you can trust? I explained all that in the classroom, and of course we hit the field. We have a big party bus where it's about 25 of us, in which we're doing a tour of Pittsburgh, showing you the good, the bad, the ugly, the numbers, not just of my properties, but the properties of my students. And last and certainly not least, we give you access to all my vendor lists. So you don't have to be fearful of cold calling a person you don't know, and you have to screen them out to see, is this listing agent a good agent or a bad agent? Is this the buyer's agent or a listing agent? Is this agent professional in business as Juan Pablo stated, or do I have to kind of kiss a bunch of frogs to find the right prince? I did all that. You don't have to. Shorten the learning curve. If you're a busy person, you might have a day job, you might have a wife and kids, you might have many commitments, then by all means, you should partner with us. We're the good guys here. We are professional and ambitious, and keep your best interests at heart. So I'll repeat, we'll do the deal making process. We'll have those scheduled calls with you frequently for educational purposes. We also have a trip to Pittsburgh. And last but not least, you get access to all my contacts. So that way, we make this process so much easier for you. Only thing you have to do is to apply. All right? As always, guys, is to your success, earn passively, live passionately. Peace.